Wrap about the Beretta ARX 100. I normally wouldn't have touched this because it's kind of not exciting to me at $2,000, you know, $1,950 for an MSRP. I looked on Gunbroker yesterday, and it turns out you can find them for around $1,300 to $1,400, and that's the rumored LE and military pricing on that, so that's pretty cool. Around that price, definitely worth an interest and checking it out at the very least. Now, it's just like everything else, you know, 5.56, takes Stanag, you know, 16, 18-inch barrel, whatever. I'm going to focus in this review on the differences in the review to the main Nut and Fancy channel review. I'm assuming you've already seen that, so you've seen the accuracy testing, you've heard the overall specs, you know how light it is, you know how it shoots. I'm going to focus on the things that, to me, I would definitely consider if I'm looking at buying one of these. Keep in mind, I'm just a chump civilian shooter, so for me, I would be using this as like a fun collector carbine. You know, it's fun to have around. You have it, you go shoot with it, and if the situation ever goes totally tits up and you have to use it in a defensive capacity, it's good to know it's there. Now, I'm going to be pretending as if you can always find it for around $1,300 to $1,400. So when I talk about guns like the SR556 and compare it and benchmark it to that, I'm comparing it within that market. I know that you're probably going to find these around $2,000 in a lot of places because that's pretty close to what they're asking. I would not even think about it for $2,000. It's a cool gun, but $2,000 will get you a lot of cool stuff these days. I would definitely think about an LWRC individual carbine. I think it's an excellent gun. It's awesome. It shoots pretty well, you know, it's AR just like everything else. Definitely would look at a Tavor. And honestly, if the question is even, should I spend $2,000 on nearly anything else on this planet or buy a Tavor, I wouldn't even have to ask that question because I should have already bought a Tavor. But if I do have to ask it, then I'll probably just buy another damn Tavor. It is that good. It's excellent, it's small, it's hardy, it's fun to shoot. I think it's awesome. I love that it's getting so much success because that means the breed of aftermarket stuff is a lot healthier than it would be otherwise. Now, guns like this, the Masada and the Scar, they do have small aftermarket things. You'll see the Scar gets a lot more attention. I think it has a lot of quality in it. I really do like the Scar. I don't $2,300 like it, but I like it nonetheless. I think it's really cool. It shoots really well, really adjustable. It's just awesome. But when you're looking at all these things, the question is, what does it do that an AR-15 doesn't do? And for me, the thing that makes the Tavor so interesting is its size. You have something that's smaller, you have something that's more compact, it's easier to store, easier to carry, all the weight's more centralized in you, it's less fatiguing as you're running with it all day long. My only real gripe about the Tavor is that skinny broomstick grip in there. I don't really like that so much. I like my grips to be a little bit wider and a little bit bigger in diameter than that, because for me and my kind of short arms, I tend to support a fair amount of weight on both hands when I'm gripping it. Other people, when they're holding it out further, you know, they have different setups and they do that. So I'm trying to think of where to go with this because there are just so many options. Normally when you have guns like this, you pick it up and you're like, oh, it's a polymer gun. You worry that it's going to be creaking and doing all kinds of weird rattles as you use it. None of that's present in this gun. Everything on it's got great fit and finish. It's awesome. Again, $2,000 gun. It should be. There's no reason for it not to be. But you do get the feel that this is a military carbine. This is what they're supposed to be using in a sandbox, in a jungle, freaking on the moon, or in a space station with a kinetic weapon delivery system or something. Super cool, right? And that's probably what kind of drives a lot of this stuff. You're going to see, I'm sure, a lot of gamer traffic looking at all the Beretta stuff now that it's finally out for real, man. It's the only gun you can shoot in space, man. Actually, I think they have a micro Tavor there, too. It does have a lot of funky little things on it. You have the folding stock just like everyone else, kind of in this bracket. I don't give a shit about a folding stock on a gun like this. Look at that. It's not even like 8 inches or so on the back of there. I mean, if I need to fold it, I don't really know what I'm doing, and I don't know why I need to have it so slow to bear anyways. And yeah, it clips in and stuff. That doesn't save you a whole lot of space, maybe for storage or like if you're putting it in a violin case or something. I don't know. You can do it and it's cool, and it is one of those things that in a way you have to ask, why would you not put it in if they have the option? I'm kind of guessing it's one of those kind of, you know, just got to make it competitive. You're going to tell, like a lot of this, that locks up really tight. There's a tiny, tiny bit of play in that, but it's side to side, so it's really fine. It really locks well forward and aft. You have what I'm assuming are sling loops here. Keep in mind, this is just my personal opinion thing, so I haven't spent all these hours researching and stuff. This is me picking it up, you know, when we shot it a couple days ago and going, hey, I like this, I don't like this. The good about it, I really like that this charging handle lever is metal. Very few of them these days seem to do that, especially stuff where you do an HK style reload. Why in the hell would you make it out of polymer? You have stuff like the F2000, that does it. Garbage. Do it in metal so I can slap the shit out of it and feel good when I'm doing reloads. That's part of the fun of doing it that way. This does it right. It sticks out just enough. I'd even say I wouldn't mind a little bit more for those times we're wearing like winter gloves or something. It sticks out well. It has a fair amount of surface area on the front. Easy, you pull it back, it works. Awesome, right? Really great. You can reverse that, and it has a bunch of stuff where you can swap to left-handed operation, all that. Really cool, not as much of an issue. Sorry for you lefties, man. You can kind of get the shaft a lot of the time. The things I do like about it, I like this sling swivel on the front. It goes 180 degrees. Notice that it's not flopping around. That's kind of an issue with some other ones, like the Tavor. It has little QD mounts in the rear like that, and you can hear them clapping around whenever you don't have a sling attached to it, or you leave the mounts in. But then you take them off, and then you lose them for when you really need to attach them again. Kind of a hassle. This is well done. It's not too heavy, not crazy light, not free floated in the barrel. To me, it doesn't really matter. I'm not that good of a shot for it anyways, so I can't get like total match accuracy out of all these guns. I mean, I'm okay, but my long range game probably needs to be a little less rushed. Let me see what else. That's pretty much the good for it. Now I'm going to tell you the things on this that do kind of bug me. Keep in mind, all opinion. Some guys have picked this up, you know, when we hand it to them, they're like, dude, I love it. Everything about it's excellent. Love the feel, love the style. For me, I do like those bigger grips. This is a little too skinny for me, but in all, not too bad. It's not as bad as like the Tavor one. You have a little bit of that vertical striping on the back strap. You have this. This is good. It has a lot of traction on there. I like that. It will likely tear up your gloves a tiny bit. I do like this little finger ramp or choil or shelf, whatever you want to call it. I think they're really comfortable when you shoot. I like that you can kind of push on it and use it to manipulate the leverage that you have on the grip. Great little feature. You see it on stuff like this Myad. Whatever that one is, the Magpul one. You see that line on there. Really like it on there. And to me, that almost makes it worth a huge price increase over an MOE grip of the same color and general configuration. What else is cool? Magazines, look at everyone's different status on mags that work. Generally, PMag Gen 1s, Gen 2s work, EMags work, all the Stanag straight up, you know, slab-sided bodies, rock on. Not so sure about Lancers. I don't have any in an inventory to check. Oh, dang, I should have checked like a Troy Battle Mag when I was out there. It'll feed most mags just fine. You know, you can use the standard H&K steel ones everyone loves so much. Now, one thing I did notice is some of these mags will not drop free, and I don't really have enough room with all this stuff. A standard Stanag will kind of give you a little bit of drop to it if you care a lot about that. But stuff like, you know, a PMag will kind of stick in there. You do have to pull it out. You know, some other guns don't really ace that as well. The Tavor does it all perfectly. I love it. Still, go buy a Tavor if you haven't already, if you can find one. They're sweet. Now, my gripes about this whole system. This is where you're looking if you're going to be doing any of your reloads or bolt release or any of that. It does confuse people when they first pick it up. When I've given this to people and they, you know, check it and they get the bolt back all the way, which on this one at least has a tendency when it's unloaded to not really want to lock it back. You know, you do this number, this is your bolt release right here. So you push it up and get that back there. You really have to make sure it's locked all the way to the rear like that and use a lot of force on this compared to something like an AR. You know, where you just tap that little thing right there and boom, you're done. Or if you have a bad lever like this one, you're just putting a little bit of friction on it. Easy to catch on there, really awesome. This takes a little bit of practice with it until you get the routine down, using the right amount of pressure, the right engagement point. It is kind of picky, and I think it's just one of those little design things you'll forget about in about 10 minutes of shooting it. So this is not a mag release, as everyone keeps thinking. It's a bolt release. Underneath, you see this area. That is another magazine release. This is what you hit. For this one, when you do it, you're going to push, then pull the mag out. It's one of those kindergarten training techniques that you'll think about and go, what? Of course you do. But the second you start shooting on it, you'll be pulling on this just a little bit, and you press it, and it makes it a little bit harder for you. Push mag up, push button, pull it out. Pretty simple. One of those things. Again, 5 minutes shooting it, you'll forget all about it. I think the mag release here, it is ambidextrous. Get this working. Ambidextrous mag release, really cool. I think the button on it's really small compared to what it should be, compared to something like, and I'm like moving this thing around trying to get you a good view of everything. You get something like that, a mag button for an AR I think is near perfect. I love the size on them, love the feel. They're great. Another thing I would kind of throw out there as being awesome, this is an AX 556 lower, and I might show you this later on in kind of my other project stuff. This is kind of my current bastard gun I'm working on. I took the lower off just to simplify my movement around, and I do need to paint that white in again. It's kind of flaked off for me. Look at how big, it's a standard AR one. Look at how big the bolt release is on that. Awesome. Love that. This is also ambidextrous. You know, it's a good size. It's a standard size. I think this thing is very European. You'll see this on like the SIG 556 too. I don't like it so much. I like something that's a little bit bigger, a little bit easier, because it seems like the bigger it is, the easier it is to put that force and leverage into it, easier it is to drop your mag. You'll see stuff, I think on the SIG 556 does that. Not really the best, but it's not that bad. This is your barrel removal area, whatever you want to call it. I'm sure there's some name for it, like barrel retention lever. You pull down on these, it usually helps. Don't have it loaded, dumbasses. I'm half saying that jestingly for myself, so don't get all offended. You know, you rack the bolt back, keep it back, pull on these, you can kind of wiggle this out. Awesome, fantastic barrel change. Awesome, awesome, awesome. From the sound of it, they're gonna have like a 7.62x39 conversion kit out there. They already have the 300 blackout conversion kit, I hear around $500. That's not a bad price. I don't like buying a gun like this and looking at the pricing for the barrels and finding out it's like 1,800 bucks. If I'm gonna spend that much money, friggin' spend 300 bucks more and get a serialized lower with it. Then you have two guns instead of just one and a bunch of parts. Now, you know, we were talking about this and how this little barrel's a little bit thinner back here. It does go to a thicker profile under the handguard. With such an easy barrel swap system, it wouldn't totally surprise me if they sent an extra barrel with someone who's going out into the bush for a while. If you think you're going to get in like a firefight or something and melt this down, it would be conceivable that you could have a spare barrel and swap it out, you know, while you're doing other stuff. It's a thought. I'm sure that's way too G.I. Joe thinking to be of actual use, but it's something to consider. If you really like having that capability and you're leery of getting in some kind of crazy, you know, Fallujah style thing where you're melting metal, then you can throw that in your knapsack and call it a day. The stock on it I do like. It's nice and clicky and it works just fine. I don't really have any problems with that. I don't have a problem with the cheek weld or the comb or any of that. It fits pretty well. 1 in 7 twist rate, rock on, whatever, I don't really care. The things I do not like about it are this little system here. I don't like a gradual transition. I really do like, you can see it on this lower, how they kind of have that area. I do like to be able to kind of pull back on that and get a lot of traction against yourself and just kind of isolate it. I like things that are perpendicular to the barrel instead of parallel. I don't like doing this so much, I like pulling it. That's complete preference. And you can actually get a replacement part from Beretta that does this little thing, and it's 30 bucks. So this little cover pops off, and I prefer that actually. You know, if they're gonna choose one or the other, I would just prefer a straight up rail, just mold it in, call it a day. But this is a better solution in a way because you're not carrying around that rail and the extra plastic underneath. It kind of just slides on, locks in. So that way you're not carrying extra features you're not using. I think that contributes to how light it is. The Buis on it are funky, and I think they are garbage. You may love them. Let's see if I can maneuver this for you. Now here's my issue with them. They're set for a pretty sure green tip. Look at how big this rear sight is. Look at how fat that entire thing is. Now, not a big deal if you're thinking about it, but when you're really choked up on it, I think one of the benefits of having iron sights like these, especially if you have an optic or something on there, is they're thin, so it kind of gives you a little more field of view. When your eye's like right here, you don't have everything blocking it, and you know, in theory, this blocks out just as much, but there are little gaps, it's a little more airy. I would rather have irons like this, and I'm sure a lot of the owners will put them on here, because you get a better field of view with it. When you're looking up here, you have less in the way. You can get a little bit better of a vibe of what kind of movement you're seeing around the target instead of just hunting it out. When you're on something like these, it's like wearing an eye patch, man. It's huge. They fold down, they're polymer, they're light. I like that stuff. I do like their little retention thing, if I can clip it back in for you. I think that's cool. Just a little bit skinnier. The diopters on them are actually really nice on this rear though. You can really kind of cinch it down, get a little more accuracy out of it, bring it back up. That's cool. It's an interesting system. It's just a little big for my taste, and I would be willing to sacrifice that and get the little size and the little bigger one. The front sight on it, I'm pretty sure that's standard GI. It does feel smaller to me, even if it doesn't really look at it when you... Surefire 60 round mags barely fit in there. You're going to be smacking it home in order to get it to actually stay in the well and lock up. And then it's going to be a bitch to get it back out. You're going to have to like lock the bolt and pull on that and do it just right. I would not run those if I'm having to defend myself with it. Sorry, I just wouldn't want to sit there diddling with my magazine and get aced. Everyone hates the G3 P-Mags. Guns and Ammo didn't like it. You see a lot of threads out there on it. Can't really change grips on it. To me, that's a, you know, it's kind of a big deal. It's not huge, but I like the more modularity and the more variables I have in the gun, the more I can tailor it to myself. We get to at least the one thing I really, really love about it. It has a great piston system. It has, I think, 2 inches of travel up there. It's a big old fat thing, and it rides it back pretty constantly. They say that leads to decreased recoil. I don't notice it that much. It's not a really recoily round. You may notice it in rounds that are bigger. If you do a conversion kit and then you're playing with that, it doesn't have as snappy of an impulse, at least according to the experts, as something like this, where you have a little bit of travel and it's knocking that bolt back and riding back. It kind of goes with it continuously. Very reliable from the sound of it. India's been doing their tests and just destroying these things. And the ARX was one of, I think, 3 guns out of like, I think a G36, a bunch of the newer ones like Scar and all that, that withstood all their stuff because they got some snow, I think, in the mountains. They have like deserts. They have pretty rough conditions. It has a lot of travel. That's a little bit harder to dick up. It's not as finicky and kind of pissy about stuff. The trigger on it is a GI trigger. That being said, it's fairly comfortable. It's got a wide, thick blade in there. That's awesome. I like those. You can do more surface area. It does ride stiff. It's not like a super smooth trigger. But let's talk about what kind of money you'd be spending. Again, $1,400. I think it's a contender. You'd be looking at different stuff. You want to pony up a little bit more, get a Tavor. Let's assume you already have a Tavor. It's freaking sweet. You love it. Rock on. You want something a little more like this. You're thinking about something that's a little lighter, that's a little more handy. I would recommend it, I think. Keep in mind, around that same pricing, you're going to be looking at something like an SR556, the Ruger. Ruger does weigh like 8.5 pounds, and it does still use that kind of antiquated Troy rail that sticks out a bunch. Against a Scar and ACR, I would maybe do this if we're talking same pricing around there. I don't know. I just don't like it as much as some of these other ones. Honestly, I do lean towards AR-15s now. You know, I got this lower that I've set up. That's an H&K grip on there. I think it's pretty comfy. It works just fine for me. I like being able to swap something out like that. You know, I have shorter arms, so I don't necessarily always love these kind of canted grip angles. I wanted to try something that's a little more 45 style, and I have liked this a lot. I don't necessarily like the rounded profile on it, but I like the overall vibe that it gives you when you're shooting. You know, you could put together an AR-15 that does about the same thing this thing does for a lot less. Around $1,300, you could buy a pretty good gun. You could put one together. Granted, something like an LWRC, you're going to have to kind of stretch your budget a bit more than $1,300 to $1,400. Getting something like an individual carbine, I think, is around $2,000 to $2,200, around there. Awesome thing. It's a freaking fluted barrel on it. It's pretty sweet. I do love this M6. This is an LWRC. You know, getting one of these will run you about $2,000. So you're in the same ballpark. It is piston driven, but I love the modularity of the AR, that you can swap stuff out, you can dick with it, you can change all these, you have like this little area you can engrave away. There's a lot of stuff you can do with it. Granted, you're going to have to put up with these heavier rails on it, but you know, if you're just looking for something cheap, you really can't beat an AR-15. Now, if you're a premium user or something, you really want to wring this out and you want the reliability that comes with this piston system, by all means, man. $1,300's not a bad price for this. You get a lot. You get the lightweight manufacture of it. The pricing on the accessories is not ridiculous. The caliber conversion is a big thing. Supposedly there's going to be like an insert or something that gives you AK mags if you do that 7.62 conversion. Rock on, man. This with Magpul mags would be really cool, and I would like it even more than like the CMMG Mutant or whatever those are. Normally don't love those, but I do like the AK round, at least in theory. I do really like the smaller one, the AK-74 round. I think it's a smoking one. I always shoot it so well at range. If they could come out with this for that, would be awesome. I think they're doing one for the Tavor too. So that's the ARX 100. I think it's pretty sweet. You know, if you're going to drop that money on it, all means have at it.